Welcome to the Wisdom of Women show. We are dedicated to amplifying the voice and wisdom of women in business. A new model of leadership is emerging, and we are here to amplify the voices of women leading the way. I am your host, Coco Sellman, 5-time founder, impact investor, and creator of the Force for Good system. Thank you for joining us today as we illuminate the path to unlocking opportunities and prosperity for women-led enterprises everywhere. So today I have the most delightful, joyful, wonderful treat for you all. Today I am excited to share Kathy Parry. Kathy energizes teams to thrive amid change and challenge. As a certified speaking professional and expert in corporate energy, resilience, and productivity, Kathy empowers leaders and their teams to thrive through disruption and change. With a career that began as a trainer for a super regional bank's merger and acquisitions team, Kathy gained invaluable expertise in managing transitions and integrating new technologies. Her personal journey, shaped by the life-changing diagnosis of her fourth child, inspired her mission to teach others how to stretch without snapping during difficult times. Kathy has published 6 books, including The Rubber Band Resilient Leader and her most recent, Jolt, which you'll want to go straight to Amazon and get a copy. And these books provide actionable insights for energizing teams and building resilience in high-stress environments. Drawing on her diverse certifications and in plant-based nutrition, Alzheimer's care, and coaching, Kathy has become a sought-after keynote speaker and trainer renowned for helping organizations unlock trust, boost engagement, and achieve sustainable growth. I'm so happy and honored to have you here, Kathy.
Thank you so much. It's great to be with you. That sounds like a lot.
Well,
Thank you.
You are a gift. And I had the wonderful experience of getting to see you speak at a healthcare conference recently, the Connecticut Association for Healthcare at Home. And I was just blown away, as was everyone else sitting at my table. And we were talking about it on our board meetings afterwards. And you really are a gift to teams and a spark of new perspective. And I think you really embody what is the wisdom of women in business. It really is. So one question I always like to ask at the beginning is, what is a book written by a woman that has significantly influenced your life?
Go way back and think, because of course we all read like business books and things like that, but I was like, what really impacted my life? And there was one I read almost 30 years ago. And it's called The Gift of the Red Bird by Paula D'Arcy. And it's all about a tragic event that happened to a woman. She lost her husband and young child in a car accident, and then just how she overcame. And it was sort of, I read it at a time when I was facing something very, very difficult. And I always remember that book. And it was just, there's a bit of a faith journey in it, but it's also just about that, things are going to happen, and how little did I know, probably 15 years later, I'd write a book on resilience, but that one stuck with me.
That's beautiful. So The Gift of the Red Bird.
Mhm.
Awesome. I'll have to pick this one up. I don't know it.
I know
Don't
it's an
know this
oldie,
one.
but I was like, I've read, and then I was like, oh, I could say Sheryl Sandberg, Lean In, because that's so impactful. But I don't know, that one really got me. So
Oh,
yeah.
thank you for that. That sounds like a remarkable read for us all, because we all go through hard times, every single one of us, right?
Absolutely. We are not immune.
We are not immune. So as I was saying before, I've been fortunate to see you speak, and your story, your wisdom, and your remarkable, difficult, challenging journey are all quite extraordinary. You truly are a force for good in my view. So I was hoping you could tell your story, tell your journey, and about the pivotal moments of your life and career and how you got to stay where you're talking about resilience and trust and joy.
Thank you for the platform. I appreciate it. And what I hope when I share my story is that other women will see themselves in my story because, as I said, we are not immune and things are going to happen. We are stretched and we might not know the next step. So yeah, I was a bank trainer. So I stood up in front of people and spoke. Had a pretty, easy transition into the work world when I graduated college and loved what I did. Then took some time off to raise a family. And my fourth child was born with a severe disability. So we didn't know what we were facing because all appeared normal the first, 2 to 3 months. And then we were given the very harsh reality that she did indeed have what is called a mitochondrial dysfunction, and the doctors told us the best we could hope for is 2 years. Well, it turned into 20 years and she lived a beautiful life. She was completely dependent on me and other caregivers, which is why I have such a heart for those who are in a caregiving space, whatever field that might be, because it takes a lot. And also, as women, a lot of that falls on us. I always thought that when she turned 5, it was kind of like known between, my ex-husband and I that that would be when I would return to work. And of course, that didn't happen because she needed the care and we had caregivers coming in, but it just wasn't enough. And in that time frame, I started to learn more and more about nutrition. This is the early 2000s. So, couldn't just Google everything. And so I started researching because her disease was called the disease of no energy. Her cells didn't turn food into energy properly. So that's why I got a certification in plant-based nutrition. Then I started doing corporate wellness. Everyone started asking me, well, how are you keeping her alive? Her doctors were saying, how are you keeping her alive? What are you doing? And this is, again, early stages of what we now know. We all are experts in nutrition now, but it really helped me focus. And then people started asking me to speak. So that's how the journey to speaking. And then it became more about resilience. And that's where we transitioned from just being a corporate wellness into, no, this is truly a story of resilience. And that's what I kept hearing from people. That's kind of a brief little summary of how I got where I am.
Well, Kathy, I love your story, and I don't think I told you this, but I also have a medically fragile stepdaughter. And she was not supposed to live till 16 or 17, and she's 23. And she inspired my healthcare company that I was telling you about before we get on the phone. So, I think, and I was talking to another founder this morning, that one of the unique differences about women founders is that we're often moved by a situation that is is hard, that's challenging. And that often is what creates an impetus to create something, to do good, phoenix rising from the ashes, if you will. And your message reminds me of that so much. So your fourth child, remind me of her name.
Mary Joy. She passed in 2021. But when I named her Merit Joy, I had no idea anything
Merit.
was
Mhm.
wrong with her. But it's the joy that I felt, in raising her that really came to fruition in my work. But I love what you just said, that we are often as women, we're motivated by what is stretching us. And sometimes the vision isn't clear, especially when we're in it and it's just really tough. But I always say, just wait, something's coming. When I do that example, I do the rubber band, it's the rubber band resilient leader. And the stretch of the rubber band holds the potential energy. And if we don't ever stretch, the rubber band can't shoot across the room. It has no
Mhm.
energy, but it's in the stretch that we gain that. So when people, maybe someone listening today, you're going through something difficult, it hurts, it's stretching you, you don't like it, do whatever, if it's financial or personal, something can come of that. And we can always look forward. I know it's tough when you're in it, but there is the
Oh,
potential.
it's true. Right, right. It's I have a book coming out myself, and I talk a little bit in one section about how progress isn't always pretty, right? Like, those moments of big breakthroughs where you have those, oh, wow, I just grew, uh, you know, I grew as a human. I created a new outcome. It's usually really hard, right? And so as we're building our companies, it's sometimes we think, well, if we're not celebrating all the time, then it must mean that something's wrong and we need to make sure everybody is just, so how do you balance that resilience, stretching the rubber band without snapping, as you describe it?
At the reframing stage. So there's the reacting stage when we're in it and we're reacting and we don't like this and it's uncomfortable. And then we get to reframe it. And
Uh-huh.
that's our choice. We can reframe our crisis however we like. And so how we talk about it, I used to say, as soon as I said, I don't have to be the mother of a child with severe disabilities, I get to be her mother. Like the world sort of opened up. I was working with Pittsburgh Children's Hospital. I was on call for if a parent wanted to talk to another parent. I started again the whole path of working in nutrition to help others. So I got to experience that. I also used to have this thing like, some people, they just don't get all the emotions. They're just either, happy or, sad or whatever. I'm like, I get all the emotions. All the emotions come my way because it, is difficult. So after like just how we talk about it and think about the disruption, then I always like to say a really great exercise is just to start to list, okay, what could I gain from this? What are the opportunities here that I could actually gain something from this thing that is stretching me. So doing some of that difficult work helps when you're stretched.
And you talk about this in your book, in both of your books, or how where
It's in the Rubber Band Resilient Leader. Yeah. React, reframe, re-energize is my system for getting through the crisis.
amazing. So walk us through those three steps just a little bit. Just tell us a little, you sort of did it now, but just break it down so we can focus
Sure.
on something that's challenging right now in our lives and walk us through how we can transform that into something better.
Right. So if you are facing something that is disrupting you, there's a bit
Uh-huh.
of a crisis, a disruption, first step is reacting. And I like to say, that's fine. You should react. We are humans. If we don't react, that's, not, it doesn't feel right. But we all have different ways of reacting. And this is important on a team. When I address this with teams, you're implementing a brand new technology system. And this person is stretched because they have to work extra hours and that's going to cost more childcare. And this person doesn't understand that. So understanding what are the reactions on a team are important when you're dealing with something professionally, but just honoring reactions. And again, if you're on a team, work to understand how an entire team reacts to things that will make things better. Then I like to say that you can't live in just reaction mode, right? So then the next phase in that rubber band resilience curve is reframing. And reframing looks like things like how we talk about it, what energy comes from it, what are we trying to create from it. It's also a time to get creative. It's like, okay, well, this looks different, it feels different. How can I manage it and be creative around it? So we kind of ignite our creativity. And then the final phase is the re-energizing phase. And I like to say, this is where the good stuff happens. This is where you get to share what you've learned. You can, step into the new you, because at this point you've reacted, you've reframed it. It was like, wow, I didn't know this was the way it was going to be. And start to share that. Like, wow, I learned from this. So being a kind of a servant leader and saying, hey, I've been there. I've seen exactly what you're going through. You're growing a new business and you're going through a divorce and you've got kids. I'm going to step in because I've done that too. So that's the re-energizing phase.
Well, and so, one of the things I love about this is as a leader, we're going to go through these things. And so we need to nurture our own reactions and look to reframe the things that we can't see anything good in and then, honor and re-energize ourselves. But so often our team will go through things. And if we can help them see what they've just uncovered, like, wow, you just went through something really hard, right? I witnessed that. I witnessed your greatness, right? And what a refuel that is to be re-energized by, I know you've been dealing with this divorce at home or this sick child at home. And I watched you come to work every day. I watched you make it happen even still. And
Yeah,
I just honor that. Like, how re-energizing is that? And that's a 5-minute conversation can,
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. We want to be acknowledged in our pain. I think most of us, we don't want to be pitied. We don't want to be looked
yes.
upon in that way. But just a simple acknowledgement is, I understand you're going through something, makes
Mhm.
a world of difference. Yeah.
So, workforce burnout is a big topic in healthcare. It's a big
Mm.
topic in probably every area, right? You get to a point where you're just burned out. Entrepreneurs all the time, especially ones who've been doing it for a while, are often burned out. Um, so it's a challenge for any kind of a growing company. So, what are some practical steps that visionary women founders and leaders can take to re energize themselves and their teams?
Most important things when we talk about burnout is really looking at the tasks that are
Uh-huh.
burning you out. What is it? What is it specifically that
Yeah.
is making you uncomfortable, making you not want to show up? I know what those tasks are for me personally. And when I start feeling that, I also know the tasks that energize me. So if I can get away from those draining tasks, which are usually repetitive or, things that just have to be done, and I can set aside some space for creativity. Excuse me.
Bless you.
I'm energized because creativity, sparks me and it keeps me going. So I'm going to let you ask one more question and how that looks in your life because I'm going to take a drink of water.
Of course, of course, of course. Yeah, no, I think that burnout is a big thing, right? I've experienced it at different moments, and for sure, COVID was a perfect moment, right? Where we watched our teams. I watched my team feel the challenge of having to go back into the field and feeling afraid. And some of them, my nurses were working for skilled nursing facilities where it was just overflowing with COVID. And they were really worried about then taking it into the home of a medically fragile child on a vent or, with a trach and, with respiratory challenges, really, really worried to do that. So, and then we had PPE challenges, right? So really as a leader, I remember going back to the drawing board of like, what is my core purpose? What is the core purpose of the business? Like, we are here to provide remarkable care. You people are heroes. Let's go out into the world and meanwhile, we were, I had Tyvek suits made for everybody. I had a group of ladies come over and they all made masks, right? And
Yeah.
we had them taken out to the house, shuffled out to the houses. Every week we brought cookies and we brought different things to sort of say we got your back. So I think it's always on us, and it's in those moments of the biggest challenge when we really need to lean into whatever our purpose is.
Beautiful. I'm sorry about my coffee tip.
No,
Thank
I'm
you. Thank
sorry.
you
You're
for taking
having
the
a
pick.
you're
Yeah.
having a cold. I want to.
Did
I
it.
wish I want to like make you some chicken
Oh,
soup.
I'm 80% better. But what I loved what you said about purpose and burnout, when we
Yes.
align and we fully know what that purpose is. I'll tell a
Yes.
quick story about my daughter when she did turn 5, and it was supposed to be the year I went back to work, and I wasn't going to that wasn't going to happen. I called it my school bus moment. It was the moment the school bus pulled up and all my other children got on it. And this would have been the year that she was supposed to go to school. And I remember just feeling sorry for myself. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to go down to Starbucks, pick myself up. And yet there were all the other moms who had just loaded kids on the school bus. And I told myself, stop it. You've made it 5 years. She's a beautiful part of your life. What's your purpose going to be? I asked myself the hard question, because fear is one of those things that can come in and stop us. And fear is that thing that can drain us of energy quicker than anything else. But I was allowing fear to come in. And so I said, no, what is your purpose? And it just became very clear. It's like, be her voice. That's going to be your new purpose. You're not going back to work. You're not going back to corporate, that thing you wanted to do. You have a new purpose, be her voice. And then I launched this professional speaking career, and I get to, listen to other people's stories and be that force that helps them, get over the fear. So purpose is so important. And that in my new keynote, Joy Jolt, when I talk about joy, it's about purpose and gratitude and loyalty, and how those things can build joy in any culture. So I love it. I love it when you talk purpose. And I don't, sometimes we glance over, oh, it's our purpose. That's our purpose. But really tapping into that and helping your teams understand what that purpose is, so important.
Naming it,
Naming it.
right? Naming it. It's super important to name it. I so often when I meet with founders, they'll say, "Oh, we have a purpose and we have values," and I'll say, "Well, tell me what are they?" And if you cannot name them, I am certain that there is misalignment on your team. I am certain, because if you don't know, and sometimes it's even they haven't written it down ever, and they still think they have one. And this is one of the founders need to embody this. This is something the corporate understands better, that you need to write things down and things need to be systematized. Um, but so you talked about, okay, so I want to talk about Joy Jolt and purpose and gratitude and joy, because I have so much belief that if you can cultivate these in your culture for your teams, there's nothing in the world that you can't do. And it sort of doesn't even matter. You want to achieve things, obviously, but it creates a whole new way of interacting. And so tell us about purpose, gratitude, and joy, and how that all comes together, your philosophy around how to do that and I know you talk about it in Joy Jolt.
To equate it to like a cup of coffee is made up of three things: beans, water, and heat. So the whole thing has a theme of coffee, because I love Starbucks. I'm a big Starbucks fan. It's been a part of my life. But the beans, I like to say, coffee beans are just meant to make one thing. It's not like corn that is the most abundant crop and it can be made into, hundreds of different things. It's just one thing. So what is that one thing? And we get kind of, hung up on it. Like it has to be too big. By me just saying, my purpose is to be her voice. My purpose is still to be my daughter's voice. She's not with us anymore, but what she taught others, just in her simple life, it's still my purpose. So, but in an organization, there's great research done by Kearney Consulting, and it's all on joy at work. The former CEO actually wrote a book called Joy at Work. And there is a gap. There's a joy gap. 90% of people believe there should be some degree of joy at work, whereas only about, 40% experience joy at work. And how do we build joy on teams is we show them how does their role in the purpose of this organization make a difference. And if somebody's not understanding how their role makes a difference, they don't have a lot of reason to show up each day or feel that joy. And then there's of course loyalty. To build loyalty, I like to say, in a cup of coffee, you want to get the impurities out of the water. Starbucks triple filters their water. So in our organizations, we want to get the impurities out. And some of those impurities look like incivility or lack of communication, or just, managerial level that don't understand how to manage people. Those are some of the impurities. So look for those and build more loyalty on a team, because people want to work for people they like. And then find these gratitude. And we kind of touched on this, I think, a little bit. Like, we need to show that we appreciate what somebody does, or we appreciate that they are going through something difficult. Just constantly looking for those ways that we can be grateful for people who work for us. And if you happen to be a solopreneur and you're listening to this, constantly being grateful for your journey and how you show up every day, that you are, making a difference in someone's life.
Oh, so Kathy, there's so much to unpack here.
Mhm.
First of all, I'm going to say that one of the great marks of a leader, I think, is being able to tell a very simple story over and over and over again, and keep using the same references and bringing it back to everything. And you do that so well. So I've seen you do your longer talk on joy, and this idea, no joke, she talks about Starbucks. She weaves Starbucks into her whole story, and it's part of her big journey, and then to of course take that same reference and to put it into your joy. And I think about your book, with the beans and the heat and the water. And so as a founder, I think it's so important to come up with those stories, to come up with those true analogies that you can then bring forth. So this idea, so now I'm going to remember these three things: joy, and I'm going to remember loyalty, right? And I'm going to remember the importance of gratitude, because you just made it so simple with the process of creating coffee and what those pieces are. And now I have a way to latch onto it. So I really appreciate that. The other thing I want to really touch on is that joy, it isn't about giving people cookies and candy all day long. It's not about
Happiness.
taking them bowling, although
Right.
that can be a nice thing to do, right? The joy comes from meaning and purpose, from being able to contribute and add value, to be, and so sometimes I think we miss the mark on that as leaders. Do you want to say more about that?
To that, not only do we miss the mark, but we forget how important the human connection is in that building of joy. I mean, we want, as humans, even though we're moving into this AI world and it's
Mhm.
getting, it's very interesting. The whole thing's very interesting, and we maybe don't need as many people around us. And we can have an AI friend. People thrive and feel joy when they're connected to another human. And even friends and people I know who are the most introverted, they still want that connection with someone. Maybe it's just a one on one connection. But realizing that even on your team, they're there to build a connection, not just do the work. So I say, you get to know them. Yeah, you said bowling, yeah, it might not bring joy, but it might bring a connection that then they
Yeah.
can remember the next time. Like, oh, I didn't know. I got to do that project. I don't want to do that project. Oh, but just if they already have a connection, it makes things a lot easier. Yeah.
That is so true. And sometimes it's in those after hours moments that you break down those barriers between one another. You start to see each other a little more human like. The other thing I thought was interesting, you said right away about joy, is that um, to look at what people are doing, and is it aligned with their unique value, their unique abilities. And we can, if everybody was doing the work where they are best suited, their highest and best use, they're going to do more for the organization, and they're also going to feel better, right? And that will of course hopefully make them want to stay longer, right? So this loyalty piece also gets tied in. So all the impurities too,
The
right?
impurities, got to look for those. Yeah. And if you're unsure what the impurities are in your organization or your team, ask. People will let you know with some degree of candor what they feel. I just did uh, a session for actually a rural hospital. They have 3 locations, and we did that. We said, and they were at tables, and they had group discussion. And boy, I heard it. I don't know if they were letting their CEO, who was in the room, and the chief human resource officer necessarily know what they were saying, but I heard it, and I did report back. Like, you have a lot of people saying you're siloed and your communication is not, where they want it to be. So people will tell you.
You have to be brave, right? To ask and be willing to change. Don't ask if you're not going to if you're not willing to change too,
Right.
right? Because now
Yes.
you've really
Yes.
busted loyalty right in.
Correct. And trust. Yeah.
Seth, so that's the other topic I was hoping we could talk about today is as how important trust is. And it's, I know it's a conversation that you have a lot when you do keynotes. You have a lot of topics on trust. So why is trust critical to retaining and energizing teams, and how can leaders do better fostering it? And what are we doing that unconsciously, you know, thwarts it?
So you're correct. That is another session I do. It's called Unlock Trust, the winning combination to retain and energize teams, because people will leave so quickly if they do not trust, and they won't give them themselves if they don't trust. So there's actually, transparency, I like to say, is well, I think that's number two in importance. Communication, obviously, is tops. People want to know information, but transparency is a little bit different. Transparency is not just the information, but it's the why behind the information. Why did I make that decision? Because we can talk about, well, that decision's made and there's your information. But if I don't have the why, I don't feel like I'm part of the team. I don't feel like everything's being truthful. So I do like to say transparency is one of the big ones. And then of course, civility and several others that I talk about. I'm like having a little brain fart, but I do believe that trust will leave you if you can build it up. It's one of the most important things. I had a friend who was a executive director at a senior housing facility. In her first year as the director, she desperately needed new carpet. It was worn. They're like, absolutely, it's in the budget. We're going to get it. And they had a lot of locations. Year number two, oh yeah, carpet. It's on the budget. You're going to get it. Year number three, still no carpet. She quit after 4 years. She's like, I'm getting, I cannot trust that they're going to come through on it. So actions must match, what we're saying as well.
Absolutely, right? So we have to be careful with that,
Mhm.
right? So our good intentions to promise something can go right down the drain. And we're better off saying, I'm not sure. I hear that this is something you need, right?
So much better off to just, yeah, not just play safe, but also just say, I don't have the answer right now. Let me circle back. And then I always say when. How long will it take before you get back? I will have an answer next week, and then have the answer next week, or else you are no longer trustworthy. Yeah.
Right. And if you don't have the answer, get back to them. I see that happen, right? Like, okay, we can allow for the occasional miss on the timeline, but don't just not respond, right? Like go back, say, I apologize. I'm not going to make the deadline that I committed to. As leaders, we have to hold ourselves really accountable for that kind of thing.
Right.
As founders, Kathy, one of the things that make us unique is that we really can go out and start and do whatever. I mean, we can create cool things, but there's also the underbelly of that is that we don't like to be accountable. so so we have to watch out for that
Yeah.
because it does erode trust as we're trying to build.
Yes, absolutely. That's funny. Yes, we are entrepreneurs for a reason.
Yes, yes,
Yes.
it's true. It's true. So, with looking at the companies that you've worked with, what common traits or even practices set apart those that successfully adapt and thrive during disruptive, difficult events or times?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I will give you a example from a company I worked with. And again, I do a lot of work in senior care and caregiving. And
Mhm.
this was a large organization, but one location. They were residents for about 400 residents. And they actually did away with a division, which was their home health care division. They did it all on their own and they were doing away with it. And the CEO came to me because we were in the middle of a 6-month program to train his leaders, because unfortunately a lot of leaders get put into positions because they've done the position but they haven't had the leadership skill set. And he said, I'm in trouble. I messed up. I said, what happened? Where did it go wrong? He said, I did not adequately communicate why. And it was, so see, it was a transparency issue and a trust issue. And so not only did he lose the trust of his team, but also the residents and their families, because they were counting on the ability to have that home health aide come in an assisted living situation. So it was all about that trust and transparency. So we did a little, mind, dump. I'm like, okay, well, who's most upset and how can we work with that? And just had a lot of conversation around what is that piece of not just information, but being transparent about the why. So that ended up being so much better. And he said, I'm going to now lay out the plan for any changes ahead of time and really think about impact. He hadn't thought about the impact on, this level, this level, this level. So when we work through that, I just, number one I think in all leadership situations is that communication piece. And I see it over and over and over again. I always say it's the free one. It really doesn't cost a lot to communicate well. You just have to do it. Yeah.
Have to do it, right? And you have to think about all the people, all the constituents, right? And what their worries and concerns are going to be. And sometimes it's not even, you can't just tell them once.
No, no.
Right?
And
Right?
that same organization, when we dove a little deeper, their kind of corporate culture on returning
Uh-huh.
an email was a week. I'm like, a week is not good. That's,
Right.
I'm sorry if you might have to do it at night or, you know, whatever. A week response time is, in my opinion, unless it's just, someone asking you to a party or something. But if it is a critical situation, a week is too long.
Right. Again, it's eroding that trust and that loyalty. And then you set this example too, that it's nothing is that urgent or important, right?
Right,
Like,
right.
what if it's a customer, so,
Exactly.
right? Where
Yeah.
your team, I am of the ilk that, um, my most important customer is my employee, right? Like that's my most important customer, because I'm not the one out there doing this stuff. Like I'm not the nurse, I'm not the health aide, or, if you're in design work, or you're in bakery work, whatever, you're not the one who's hopefully doing all of it. And so for me, it's always taking care of those people first and, not responding. But I want to also say that it's really admirable that your client was honest and owned up to it, because that's how we change. We as a founder, so often, nothing is perfect. Like if somebody came to my website right now that was a marketing expert, they could cut it up into shreds, right? Because we have to settle for whatever we can get up and get moving and get going, and perfection has to go to the wayside. So we have to be willing to say, yeah, you know what, I did wrong here. This is what I did. Now I'm going to improve. So
Yeah.
kudos to him. And they
And
brought you in.
mhm. Yep. And I will say his executive team, he had a team of about 22 people. They were watching and it was all on a call. It was all going down on a call. And you were 100% correct. He really gained, not even just the trust, but the admiration of a team. Because when we humble ourselves, we know this as a leader, if we're able to humble ourselves, say I was wrong, people are all of a sudden going to be more loyal than, if we put up that bravado.
That's the wisdom of women, Kathy. We don't all know it, but we women do, right? Like
Yes,
that's
I think
very
you're right.
national. It's very,
Mhm,
very natural for us to see that
mhm.
as a power.
I think you're right. Yeah.
So Kathy, how can people get in touch with you? More of what you do. Certainly, everybody can go buy Jolt on Amazon right now. You can also pick up the Rubber Band Resilient Leader But how else? Website?
So website, I'm Kathy with a K, Parry with an A, Kathy Parry. I always say don't text or email Katy Perry. She won't answer you, but I will. Um, at LinkedIn, I'm very active on LinkedIn. There's some resources on the website, and Instagram, I kind of keep it a little less businessy, but I will say right now I am going through the entire Joy Jolt on my Instagram account every day, giving the prompts in the book and helping people find their 30-day journey to more joy. So I think that's more because it lights me up.
Well, and then that's how it works, right?
Right,
Doing what
right.
lights us
But
up. It
mhm.
sets everybody off. And I also, when you go to Kathy Parry, PARRY.com, you'll see that she delivers keynotes, she delivers various workshops, and she also has a platinum power program. What is that?
Yeah, so that's actually what I just described when I was working with that leadership team. It's a 6-month
Oh,
program specifically
wow.
designed because what I noticed, and again, especially in healthcare, some other areas where we're so impacted by the pandemic and workforce issues, shortages, that people were being placed into leadership roles that had no leadership or managerial training. So we go through 6 months with a team that needs a little bit more development just in those skills. We meet twice a month. A couple times I've done the kickoff in person, which is a lot of fun, gathering a whole team, working through, getting to do some of those fun exercises where you're learning about each other. And then we continue on our journey for 6 more months together. Great. It's been great feedback. The groups I've worked with have been phenomenal and open. They're open to this growth because a lot of them haven't had that kind of growth before. And it's a good reset for those who have, as I said, that CEO, he was very open and honest that he'd messed up. So
I love that. Oh, that sounds like a wonderful experience, especially for founders if they've grown and they have team members that have been with them for a long time, but maybe they haven't really gotten the leadership skills in place. Like there's a lot to learn, right? With effective leadership. It doesn't just come naturally. I think you have to learn it and you have to have mentors and so forth.
yeah, absolutely.
So there's also, folks, just make sure when you go to the website, there's also at the bottom of the homepage, there's a Get Your Energized Team Kit. You want to get this. It has the Resilient Team Exercise, the Team Trust Audit, and it includes a 1-week stress reduction challenge, which sounds really awesome. We all need a little less stress, especially in the holidays. So be sure to check all that out. And as we start to move towards close here, Kathy, what is one final word of wisdom that you'd like to offer to our listeners?
Wow, that's a big one. um, Only because this is also presenting itself in my life a little bit right now. But if it's stretching you, it's building you up. So if something is stretching you, I use the example of I tore my Achilles tendon in 2016, and I was so afraid to go to rehab because they were going to give me that giant, stretchy rubber band. But unless we're building and stretching, we're not building those muscles that we need. So if it hurts a little bit, it's okay.
It's okay. We can handle it, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much, Kathy. Thank you for joining us today on the Wisdom of Women show. Thank you for illuminating the path to unlocking opportunities for growth and prosperity for women-led enterprises. We value and appreciate you and your wisdom. And for all of our listeners, if you enjoyed our time together, please be sure to follow, like, and share the Wisdom of Women show on whatever your favorite listening or viewing platform you prefer. And to infuse more wisdom into your business, be sure to take the Growth Readiness Quiz at aforceforgood.biz/quiz and uncover where your insight is needed most right now in your business. So the world is made better by women-led business. So let's all go make the world a better place. Thank you.
you.